Recently, a TV show by the name of UnOrthodox Life has captured the attention of social media to the degree that there have been articles written about it in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, in the Jerusalem Post, in Rabbi Yair Hoffman, who writes a wonderful, wonderful halachic article that is syndicated within the newspapers of the Five-Town area, and I believe as well the New Jersey. I may be incorrect, but I believe it appears there as well. And this TV show evidently chronicles the life story of a woman who was raised within Muncie, New York, and decided to move away from the lifestyle in which she was raised, in which she was reared, from orthodoxy, from Shmiras HaMitzvos, taking part of her family, her whole family, with her at different points in time. And evidently it has captured endless numbers of people, both within the frum circles, the Orthodox Jewish circles, and beyond, within the secular world at large. And needless to say, I will not be watching it. However, unquestionably, notwithstanding the fact that there is no patent of certainty and perfection of any degree in a particular mode of chinuch, of raising children, be it more insular or less insular, and whereas it's unquestionably true that at times within frumkeit, within Yiddishkeit, depending upon how children are raised, there could be a feeling of being somewhat stifled. Nonetheless, as far as I am concerned, the end game of such an endeavor and such a saga is actually alluded to in the Sedra of this coming Shabbos Kodesh, that of Eikev, in which we read in the second paragraph, the second parsha of Kriya Shema V'hoya Im Shemoah, where Kodesh Baruch Hu tells us that if indeed we will hearken to the mitzvahs and we will be blessed with a huge bounty of success and a huge bounty of financial blessing from Hashem Yisbarach, albeit, continues the psukim, Mishamru lachem, we need be careful, pen yivtelev avchem v'sartem v'avadatem Elohim acharim, lest our hearts seduce us away from the milieu in which we were raised, away from the derech HaTorah of Shmiras HaMitzvos, of observance of the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'sartem v'avadatem Elohim acharim. And the Torah tells us that indeed, more often than not, we will be led astray to the degree that we will serve not other gods, but rather, explains Rashi, gods that are other towards us. And Rashi slices the free saying, if you move away from a life of Torah and Shmiras HaMitzvos, if you move away from a life of having been reared as a frum person, then indeed, then that will naturally result in the embracing of other gods in one form or another. And says Rashi, studying the free, yes, because of the fact because the moment that a person removes himself or herself from the Torah HaKadosha and from such a lifestyle and life education, then ultimately, perforce, that individual will engage in the service of another, in a foreign service. And Rashi explains, Elohim Acherim, it doesn't mean other gods, giving credence to any other form of existence of a godly nature, but rather, Shehem Acherim La'ovdehem, they are gods, small g, that are other to their worshippers. Namely, Tzoek Elov Ve'eno Onehu, that the worshipper and the one who serves such a god, small g, will cry out to it, Ve'eno Oneo, and will go unanswered. And when I was a child, and even an adolescent, it bothered me because I thought to myself, the pasuk seems to be instructing us that people will embrace these other gods, and these gods will be molten in image, or they'll be made out of stone, or out of rock, or out of wood. And of course, this Getchka, of course, this other god will never be able to answer the person who is prostrating himself to it or praying to it, because after all, they're inanimate objects. They're not a kel yochid. But Rashi is telling us, no. It means gods that are other to their worshippers. Because it doesn't necessarily have to solely mean that people will pray to it, daven to it, and receive no answer, but rather, that a person will cry out to it, and pray to it, and put one's feelings and hopes and aspirations and desires and lifestyle and pattern to it. and indeed will receive no answer, which means as follows: that when a person leaves the derech of Shmiras HaTorah and Mitzvos, when a person leaves the absolute, divinely defined mores and coda of Torah law and direction of our priorities, our aspirations, our goals, our responsibilities, our limitations, then you know what happens? Then there's a terrible vacuum that's agonizing in nature. And it's such a wide and large vacuum that in order to fill it, a person has to try to embrace anything and every other form of physical and material life to make up that difference. And whether it be an endless wardrobe or a lifestyle of the rich and famous, of palaces and palatial homes, of jet-setting around and wearing the latest clothing that barely covers oneself, and whether it means no longer adhering to kashrus, anything and everything that is potentially salacious in nature and so far and distant from the derech Hashem, a person will have to try everything and anything and go anywhere and everywhere to first discover that he or she will be so eikelav ve'ena onehu, that their neshama, that their soul, and their needs, and their minds will simply never, ever, ever be filled again with a sense of warmth and clarity and truth and feeling of religiosity and specialness and nearness to the Borei Olam, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So elav ve'ena onehu, gods that will be other to those who serve it. Because when you move away from the derech Hashem, and it doesn't even matter why, but if you move totally away and you don't try to work it out within the system, then there will be an agonizing vacuum following in its wake. And one will find indeed that one will never ever replace HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Yiddishkeit and the warmth of the Shabbos table and the Shabbos experience and the warmth and fulfillment of Limud HaTorah, the study of Torah, and the derech Hashem and the path of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that was chosen and forged for man to follow and set himself upon. Nebuch, 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 on a person who indeed embraces an unorthodox life, because that person will never ever know again what it means to be fulfilled and what it means to be whole. Have a wonderful Shabbos.